There's a strange pattern most people never notice about themselves. They know exactly what would help them, exactly what needs to change, yet they spend enormous energy avoiding those very things. Not out of laziness, not because they don't care, but because something deeper is at work, something that protects you from the very growth you're seeking. Stay with me, because understanding this pattern might be the shift that finally breaks the cycle you've been stuck in for years. You already know what needs to happen. Maybe it's that conversation you've been postponing for months, the one where you finally tell someone how you really feel or set a boundary that's long overdue. Or maybe it's simpler than that, drinking more water, going to bed earlier, opening that neglected project file. Small things that aren't complicated at all, yet they sit untouched. Here's what's fascinating. The human mind will choose familiar pain over uncertain relief almost every time. It's not logical, but it's predictable. You've adapted to where you are right now, even if it hurts. Your nervous system has mapped this territory. The discomfort has become background noise, manageable in its consistency. Change, even positive change, registers as threat. Because growth means stepping into the unknown, and the unknown triggers every survival instinct you have. But here's where it gets tricky. You're not sitting around doing nothing. In fact, you're probably incredibly busy. That's the genius of avoidance in the modern age. It doesn't look like procrastination anymore. It looks like productivity. You reorganize your workspace instead of starting the work. You research the perfect morning routine instead of just waking up earlier tomorrow. You watch videos about discipline while avoiding the one action that requires it. The mind is brilliant at creating substitutes, activities that feel adjacent to progress but keep you safely distant from actual transformation. Think about someone who wants to write a book. They'll buy journals, download writing apps, join online communities, create detailed outlines. All of it feels like forward motion. But the page stays blank because none of those activities require the vulnerability of putting real words down. The preparation becomes the destination. The planning becomes the accomplishment. And months pass without anything fundamentally changing. This isn't about being lazy. This is strategic self-protection disguised as effort. Your subconscious knows that real change comes with real risk. Risk of failure, of judgment, of discovering you're not who you thought you were. So it offers you the comfort of motion without movement. Let's go deeper. Beneath every pattern of avoidance lives a fear you haven't named yet. Not the obvious ones like fear of failure, the subtle ones. The fears that don't announce themselves but quietly run the show. There's the fear of success. Sounds backwards, but think about it. If you actually got healthy, built that business, healed that relationship, your entire life would shift. New expectations would form. People would see you differently. You'd have to maintain what you've built, show up as that new version consistently. The identity shift required for lasting change is enormous, and some part of you knows that. So it holds you back, not out of weakness, but out of resistance to becoming someone unfamiliar. Then there's the fear of outgrowing your circle. Growth is isolating sometimes. The people who knew the old you might not recognize the new one. What if your progress makes others uncomfortable? What if choosing yourself means disappointing someone else? These aren't small fears. They touch the core of belonging, one of our deepest human needs. And perhaps the most painful one, the fear of trying your absolute best and still not being enough. As long as you don't fully commit, you have a built-in excuse. You can always tell yourself, well, I didn't really try, so of course it didn't work. That protects your sense of potential. Full effort removes that safety net. It forces you to confront your actual limitations, not your imagined ones. That's terrifying. Here's something else that keeps people stuck. The truths they won't say out loud. Not to others, sometimes not even to themselves. Maybe you already know that relationship isn't serving you, but admitting it means making a decision you're not ready for. Maybe you're aware your current path doesn't align with who you want to become, but acknowledging that means starting over. These truths sit heavy in your chest, and instead of facing them, you stay busy. You numb out. You distract yourself with anything that keeps the realization at bay. There's a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from living in denial. It's not the tiredness of working hard. It's the fatigue of holding back what's trying to emerge, of constantly managing the gap between what you know and what you're willing to admit. That tension drains you more than any honest conversation or difficult choice ever could. The irony is that the longer you avoid these truths, the heavier they become. They don't fade with time, they compound. Each day of avoidance adds another layer of resistance, until the simple act of being honest with yourself feels impossible. But the moment you stop running from the truth, even if it's painful, something shifts. The weight doesn't disappear, but the exhaustion of carrying it does. You might be living in what I call the comfortable cage of almost ready to make that change, almost finished with that old chapter, almost prepared to take the leap. Almost becomes a permanent state, a place where you can feel like you're on the verge of something without ever having to cross the threshold. It's safer there. In the almost, you get to keep your options open. You don't have to commit fully, which means you don't have to face the consequences of your choices. But here's what nobody tells you about the almost. It's not neutral territory. It's not a resting place. It's a slow erosion of belief in yourself. Every time you tell yourself tomorrow, and tomorrow doesn't come, you're training yourself not to trust your own word. Every time you plan to start and don't, you're reinforcing a pattern of disconnection between intention and action. The almost becomes a habit, and habits shape identity. Eventually, you become someone who is perpetually on the verge but never arriving. Not because you're incapable, but because you've practiced staying in the doorway instead of walking through it. The cage feels comfortable because it's familiar, but comfort isn't the same as contentment. You can be comfortable and completely unfulfilled. In fact, that combination is where most people spend their entire lives. Too comfortable to leave, too unfulfilled to stay peacefully. But something's shifting now, isn't it? If you're watching this, if these words are landing, it's because some part of you is ready to see the pattern clearly. Recognition is the first crack in any cycle. You can't change what you can't see. Here's the truth. You've been preparing for this moment longer than you realize. Every frustration, every moment of self-awareness, every time you caught yourself in the pattern and felt that flicker of enough, it was all leading here, to the point where avoidance stops working, where the pain of staying the same finally exceeds the fear of changing. This isn't about perfection. It's not about never avoiding anything again. It's about catching yourself faster, noticing the pattern sooner, being willing to ask, what am I really afraid of, when you feel resistance rising? The goal isn't to eliminate fear, it's to stop letting fear make all your decisions. You're not broken for avoiding things. You're human, but you're also capable of something beyond the patterns you've been repeating. The version of you that knows what needs to happen, that feels the pull toward growth, that one is ready. Maybe scared, maybe uncertain, but ready nonetheless. Real change doesn't usually come through massive overhauls or dramatic moments. It comes through a small door you've been walking past every day. One honest conversation, one boundary set, one morning where you do the thing before your mind can talk you out of it. The mind wants to make change complicated because complexity justifies delay. I need to figure out the perfect plan first. I need to research more. I need to wait until conditions are ideal. But conditions are never ideal. Readiness isn't a feeling you wait for. It's a decision you make before you feel prepared. Think about the people who actually transform their lives. They don't do it by waiting for motivation to strike. They do it by moving while afraid, by starting before they're ready, by taking imperfect action over perfect inaction. The bridge between where you are and where you want to be is built with small, uncomfortable steps, not giant leaps. What if the thing you've been avoiding isn't as insurmountable as it seems? What if it's just been sitting there, waiting for you to stop giving it so much power? Fear grows in the dark. When you turn the light on, when you name what you're actually afraid of, it often shrinks. Not because it was never real, but because most of our fear lives in the imagining, not the doing. Let's talk about time for a moment. Not to create pressure, but to create clarity. Every day you spend avoiding the thing that would change your life is a day spent in a version of yourself you've already outgrown. It's not neutral time. It's time spent reinforcing old patterns, deepening old grooves, making the eventual change harder. You can't get today back. That's not meant to scare you, it's meant to wake you up. The you from a year ago would probably do anything to have the awareness you have right now. Don't waste it. Don't let another year pass where you know what needs to happen but refuse to do it. There's no perfect moment coming. No sign from the universe that says now is the time. The time is when you decide it is. The readiness comes from choosing, not from waiting to feel ready. Every single person who has ever done something meaningful did it while feeling unprepared. They just did it anyway. And here's what happens when you finally stop avoiding. The relief is immediate. Not because the work becomes easy, but because the exhaustion of resistance lifts. You're no longer spending energy on maintaining the avoidance. You're no longer split between what you know and what you do. That alignment, even in the midst of difficulty, creates a sense of peace you haven't felt in a long time. The things you're avoiding aren't going anywhere. They'll still be there tomorrow, next week, next year. The question is whether you'll still be the person who walks past them or the person who finally walks through them. So, what now? You close this video and go back to your life. But maybe something's different now. Maybe you see the pattern with enough clarity that you can't unsee it. That's the point. Not to overwhelm you with change, but to give you enough awareness that the next time avoidance whispers, you recognize it for what it is. Start with one thing, not 10. not a complete life overhaul. One conversation, one habit, 1 hour dedicated to the thing you've been putting off. Make it small enough that you can't talk yourself out of it. Then do it. Not when you feel like it, just do it. You'll notice something when you do. The fear doesn't disappear, but your relationship to it changes. You realize you can act despite it. That realization is worth more than any motivation, because motivation fades, discipline wavers, but the knowledge that you can move through fear, that's permanent. That's the foundation everything else gets built on. The current of your life is already moving. You're either resisting it or flowing with it, but either way, it's moving. The resistance is what exhausts you. The moment you stop fighting what you already know is true, you tap into a different kind of energy. Not forced, not fragile, just aligned. And that alignment carries you further than any amount of white-knuckling ever could. The pattern breaks when you decide it does. Not someday, not when things are easier. Now, with all your fear, all your doubt, all your imperfection. That's where real transformation lives, in the messy middle of choosing yourself even when it's uncomfortable. You already know what would fix your life. You've known for a while. The only question left is whether you're willing to stop avoiding it. Drop a comment below and tell me, what's one thing you've been avoiding that you know would change everything? Sometimes naming it out loud is the first step to facing it. And if you want to keep exploring these ideas and go even deeper, I've created a collection of ebooks that might help. You'll find the link right below this video. You're not avoiding things because you're weak. You're avoiding them because you're human. But you're also capable of more than the patterns you've been stuck in. This is your reminder, not tomorrow, today.